Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So this is part two of the discussion about the things that things you should talk about, things you should discuss before you get married. So that's what we're going to talk about today. What are some things that you should discuss before marriage? So if you haven't checked out part one, please go and check out part one. In part one, I go through family and talk about kids and career. I think those are the three things I got through in part one. So check out part one, things you should discuss before you get married. And today we're going to get into part two. So I wrote down a couple things, because I want to try to remember. There's so much that you need to talk to, but there are a couple of things that I jotted down for part two. And maybe there's going to be a part three as well. So let's see how that goes. So in part two, first thing that you have to discuss is money and debt. But money, especially as it refers to debt. How much debt do you have, right? How much debt do you have? I know it's not necessarily the prettiest thing to talk about or the best thing to bring up in terms of, but what is your credit and how much debt do you have? It says a lot about the person. Look, sometimes people go through very difficult phases in life. Trust me, I know. I've been there. I know what it's like to be broke and poor. And but at the same time, you need the backstory on why is this person broke? Why is their credit 300? I don't even know what's the lowest. Yeah, but why is your credit 300? Right? Why are you in that situation where your credit score is so terrible, you're barely touching the scale, and you're in so much debt? Because that could tell you a lot about the person that you're going to get into a relationship with and how you're going to handle certain types of money issues. But if you're going to get married to this person, and it's for all the right reasons, then you need to know this stuff up front so that both of you could plan on how are you going to tackle this debt. Because I'm telling you, money can become a huge problem in relationships, and then you don't want to find yourself, after you've gotten over the honeymoon phase, so to speak, now all this debt that you're also now attached to, this debt as well, is now hovering over you and causing a lot of problems. So you need to talk about debt. What's their credit, what's their debt, and that gives you a good indication, of someone's spending habits and how they handle money. And as I said, sometimes there's a backstory to it, but it's a conversation that you still need to have. Okay, the next thing that you need to discuss is sex. Yes, 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 I have talked to and counseled a lot of people. And one of the things I realize is for a lot of couples, when they get married, sex changes, right? So after they get past that first year or two, the honeymoon phase, it might last a little bit longer for some people, then this whole idea of what is sex, it drastically changes in some relationships, right? You see people just go from being more free flowing, more engaging, more vulnerable. By the way, check out my video I did on vulnerable sex as well. But they move from being so vulnerable in the bedroom to having such engaging and passionate sex and intimacies at like at an all-time high before they get married and right after they get married. And then after that, you see the relationship starting to take a dive a lot of times as far as intimacy and intercourse is concerned. So you need to talk about sex, right? And have that open, candid conversation. What can I expect from you sex wise after we get married? You might think it's not a conversation that you need to have, but I'm telling you, it is a conversation that you need to have because people will just, I don't know, they get comfortable. They Which is really interesting because sometimes they start feeling like certain things are dirty and not good. And why am I doing this? Because we're now married. I don't have to impress you anymore. And you'll hear some people verbalize it as well. Well, I don't need to impress you anymore and all that type of stuff. And so, look, you need to talk about sex. What type of sex will we be having after we get married? It is a conversation that you must have. Okay, moving on. Next on my list, whew, this is really interesting, but just the same way some people struggle with the definition of sex, which is probably something else you've got to talk about like what really is sex. Anyway, let's move on. Also, you have to consider is what is cheating, right? I don't think a lot of people consider that. What do you consider cheating? Got to ask your partner that. They have to know what is cheating. It could cause a huge problem because some people draw the boundary lines at a different phase than you, at a different place than you, at a different point than you, right? And so what they consider to be cheating, what they consider is not cheating, you might think it is cheating. So you need to be having this conversation. It's a conversation. If you haven't had it, already, then you really need to be having that conversation with this person. So what is cheating? What do you consider cheating? Because you're gonna have people who will tell you that, well, we were just hanging out, or we were just flirting, or we were just, that's just what I do, that type of stuff. And that might seriously bother you, right? And now you're having an issue over something that wasn't previously discussed. And if it was previously discussed, then the person might have been aware of the fact that you don't like them, being friendly or talking to. There's some people like that. They meet some people anywhere and they'll talk to them and they'll, all that type of stuff, and they get friendly with them or whatever, and that might be a problem to you. Of course, it could have a lot to do with your insecurities, and vice versa for them as well. If the shoe was the on the other foot, their insecurities. So I might also say a lot about insecurities, but again, it's a discussion that you need to have. What is cheating, right? That, believe it or not, there's some crazy people out there. I would say they're crazy for this, but they would say that oral sex with somebody is not cheating because they didn't actually penetrate them. Yeah, there are some people who would say that if they're doing certain types of foreplay with people, that they really didn't cheat, because they didn't really have sex with them because of the way they're defining sex. Now, this might sound like, who doesn't know what sex like? Who doesn't know what? Kid you not, there are people like that who would have those types of justifications for things. So you need to talk about it, right? What is cheating? Is texting someone else cheating? You need to have that conversation. All right, so the other question that you need to have is, do you believe in divorce? Right? Do you believe in divorce? And you might be asking, why are we having a conversation about divorce if we're getting married? It's to really gauge whether or not this person is thinking for better or for worse, or are they thinking, well, I'm going to be here as long as this is good, but as soon as we hit a rocky patch in the relationship, then we're going to, I'm just going to be going my way. And you might be surprised that people would be very forthcoming with that. They will tell you that some people, well, yeah, so and so happened. We're just going to have get a divorce. And so right away, going in, it's not that you're going in trying to do anything bad, but right away, going into the relationship, going into the marriage, you know that, well, whew, yeah, this is how this person is thinking. And so do you really want to pursue that, right? Of course, again, it goes back to how you all define a lot of things and the boundaries that you set in your relationship. But that is another conversation that you need to have. So do you believe in divorce? How do you look at divorce? Not necessarily if you believe in it, but how do you look at it? Like, how did you define it? When does divorce perhaps become, it's an uncomfortable conversation, but it just gives you an insight into maybe how invested this person is. And that gets to one more thing, which is how do you deal with certain types of arguments when they come up so that you don't get to the point of divorce. So when we get into certain types of arguments or whatever the case is, how are we going to handle them? Are we going to have a sit down? Are we going to agree? We're going to talk about things before we go to bed? Are we going to just to have some structure within how you would deal with arguments? And that is really, really important, because the last thing you want to do is to get into an argument and blow off and say something that you regret. You can't take back your spoken words, right? You could apologize, but you've already said it. And once you said it, people will remind you 6 months, 1 year, 6 years after, well, I remember when you called me so and so, and when you said so and so. So maybe you don't really love me in the first, all that type of stuff that you get into. So those are conversations you need to have, right? You really need to have those conversations before you get married to someone. So maybe there's going to be a part 3 to this, because there's so much that I could talk about. So there probably will be a part 3 to this. So Let me know what are some other things that you could think of in terms of conversations that you need to have before you get married. Leave those in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe. I will really appreciate that. And turn on your post notifications because I post every single day. Also, go back, check out my other videos. Please share and hit the like button. Those two things help the channel grow, and I'm trying to grow the channel, so I appreciate that if you do that for me. And then also, you can leave me video ideas that you'd like to see me do in the future. So, take care. Until next time, peace.